And to the analysis of Shields and Brooks, syndicated columnist Mark Shields, New York Times columnist David Brooks. Mark, how do you see the Occupy movement now?
I think the message, which is, people say, unclear, is a lot stronger than the messenger. Certainly not Mayor Adams of Portland, but I think some of the critics and opponents of the movement itself have tried to discredit the movement by focusing attention on the exotic, eccentric, erratic behavior of some of the occupiers. But it hit home to me this past week when this question was put. The current economic structure of the country is out of balance and favors a small proportion of the rich over the rest of the country. America needs to reduce the power of major banks and corporations. 76% of Americans, Wall Street Journal poll, agree with that. 60% strongly agree with it. It cuts across partisan, religious, racial, age divisions. So I think that is a direct consequence of the movement. I think the movement's message has been very effective in getting across. I doubt if it would have been that strong 3 months ago.
That's exactly what the Tea Party movement has been saying. My problem with that movement and the Tea Party movement, both of them, is they have no leaders. They have no institutions, and you can celebrate democracy if you think it's useful to have a movement with no leaders. But if you have no leaders and no institutions, you have no direction, you have, I think, no lasting power, but you have nobody to be serious and be rigorous and say, here are the problems we all agree on, here's what we're offering. And if you have no leaders, you're not going to have any structure for a set of solutions. And politically, you're not going to be defined by your best people, you're going to be defined by your worst, who are going to be the most disruptive. And that's, I think, what's happened to the Occupy movement. So I just think a movement needs leaders and institutions to have staying power, as the civil rights movement did.
What about Mark's point, though, that all of that aside, it has raised the consciousness about this very issue that Mark was talking
I think
about.
it has. I mean, the Tea Party movement really was talking about financial concentration. This was their core message, the concentration of finance in Washington, and which is the core message of the Occupy movement, obviously from a different perspective. But so that issue is something that a lot of us agree with. A lot of us, I'm no Occupy type, but I think the banks should be broken up as they do. And nonetheless, it's not enough just to raise the issue, and I give them credit for that. You've got to have some solutions. That involves studying the issue. Things are complicated. And then the final point, and this is what the mayors are facing all around the country, is you have a right to raise issues. You have a right to protest. You don't have a right to occupy parts of your city. And so there is a balance mayors are dealing with, and I think they've been very lenient with the Occupy movement. But as these efforts mount, I think they're right to try to restore some order while giving them the right to protest.
How do you feel about what the mayor should be doing now?
Well, I think Mayor Adams has presented it was the soul of reason and restraint in his presentation with Jeffrey, and I think that's probably the tradition of cities
but
like
now they're going to move
Portland. No, that's right. But I mean, the point is, it's not that you come in with a 9-point program and a think tank and 3 opsits and 5 IBIDs and a white paper. They have changed the debate in the country. I mean, we were not talking about this before the Occupy movement started. And I think in that sense, they've changed the dynamic of the public discourse in America.
But if things turn violent, if these things continue to deteriorate for whatever reason, what then happens to the goodness and mercy of the movement?
It hurts the movement. I mean, the messenger and the message, sadly, are joined in people's minds, and the message has been dominant thus far. If the behavior, as I say, exotic, eccentric, or antisocial, or illegal of some of the messengers becomes the dominant story, then it obviously hurts the cause.
You agree with that? Huh?
Yeah, I do. I disagree that they've raised an issue that was ignored. I don't think there's been too many issues that have been more fully discussed than inequality and what's happened to the financial crisis. So this program in my newspaper, in every program in the newspaper, this has been, and the problem is they're both very complicated issues. And so you got to deal with that complexity.
I think the fact that the President of the United States is basically on this issue is testimony to the effectiveness of it. And he's been living on that issue now for the past 2 months.
Speaking of the President of the United States, that's called a segue.
Very nice.
David, one of the many folks who would like to also have that job, of course, is Rick Perry. The Oops incident serious matter for Rick Perry and his candidacy?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say we should have a moment of silence for the Perry campaign, but he already beat us to it, so he did it first.
Did you write? You didn't write that down.
I didn't write that down. It just comes to me.
That's pretty good. Yeah,
everybody has to have one Perry joke.
Okay,
and so the problem is that if he were a fully versed candidate who had a moment, we could all say, okay, he had a moment. We all have the moment. But up until now, this was his recovery moment. Up until now, he has not seemed like a fully versed candidate, a candidate who actually has thought seriously about what, say, the Department of Commerce does or the Department of Energy does, and why we should have it, why we should not have it, what's good, what's bad. And so he hasn't done the hard work of actually trying to understand the issues. And maybe this is my theme for tonight, but if you haven't done the hard work, understanding the complexities, well, people are going to doubt your credibility. And so when this happened, it wasn't just a momentary lapse, it was a symptom of the core problem of his campaign. It doesn't seem serious.
It's like what David Chalian said on this program last night, that it fit the story. The action fit the story about Rick Perry.
That's right. When you have a gaffe of this proportion and dimension, you want it to be outside of what is the pre-existing perception, a stereotype of you. I mean, when Bill Clinton went endlessly at the 1988 Democratic Convention in his keynote address, and finally reached the point where his last paragraph was "in conclusion," and the crowd cheered.
He went crazy, yeah. Right.
Okay, he could go on Johnny Carson then and say that wasn't my best hour. That wasn't even my best hour and a half. And he could laugh at himself because he was not known as a blowhard or a windbag. But in Perry's case, two things have happened. One, he's introduced to the nation through these debates. And I've never seen a campaign, quite frankly, where debates have played such a dominant and influential role. I mean, they've cemented Mitt Romney as sort of the cool, collected, professional customer. I thought one thing about the Perry mishap the other night, it did, for the first time, humanize Mitt Romney. He was the one that said EPA.
Just to give him
something. And I mean,
wrong one,
as opposed to Ron Paul, who says, no, there aren't three, there are five. I mean, it just kind of, and poor Perry at that point is about to cash it in.
Yeah. What about, how is Herman Cain and his problem how is Herman Cain dealing with his problem, which is a sexual harassment?
He's, I think, behaving badly. First of all, what I think it was he's gone for the home run. They're all lying. And then his lawyer said, watch out for the next people, which was brutal and rude. So far, his polling is up there. I think this is an illusion. I think his polling will be down quite quickly. Right now, there's a reaction from his core supporters against the media. That is they don't want to give anything to their perceived ideological opponents in the media. But this is registering. And I think when you see the rise of Newt Gingrich, which is happening right now, that's Cain beginning to deflate. And I think he'll be deflated very seriously within a week or two.
Yeah, how do you explain the Gingrich thing? Do you agree that's part of that? It's
well, I think there's a constituency in the Republican Party, a primary. David would be more familiar with this than I am, but that really is, you could call it the anti-mainstream media constituency. I mean, that really is a root. I mean, Sarah Palin rode that horse, the lamestream media, she called it. But, I mean, the sense that there are people out there who believe there's a conspiracy, that we meet in secret meetings, come up, and this is the agenda, and this is what the take is going to be. And it really is, they're waiting to support somebody. And that's what he's playing to. That's what Cain is, that's Cain's defense. He blamed it on Rick Perry's campaign. He's blamed it on the media. He's blamed on the Democratic machine. And I just thought his debate performance was abysmal. I mean, everything that came up, the European banking crisis, China trade, 999. I mean, you could ask him declining Sunday school attendance, 999. I mean, it was thoughtless. It was a thoughtless performance. But I think that Gingrich's rise, obviously there's a need for a family's values candidate after Cain's problems, and Newt is going to fill that void. No, I just
one of the things that strikes me is I still basically think there's one real candidate, that's Mitt Romney. But suppose there were two. Suppose Jeb Bush had decided to get in the race. Everybody said, oh, you can't do it. You're Jeb Bush. Your last name is Bush. But if Jeb Bush were in the race right now, I think he'd be the front runner, even regardless of the name.
Just like that, you think?
Because he would be the one person who would be for the serious establishment types, but some of the more conservative types would also, I think, be happy with him. And so it's one of the things that interests me is what happens if Mitt Romney stumbles.
Who goes?
Yeah, then where does the party go? Because really there's option A and no option B, practically. And so that would just create a crisis in the party. And then you really would see people rallying around somebody who's not in the race right now.
Quickly, before we go, the president's decision on the pipeline from Canada down through to Texas, the decision to delay it. What do you think?
Well, he didn't make it. The State Department made it.
Oh, the State Department.
No, I mean,
because it was Canada.
There were two dilemmas. I mean, one is his environmental constituency.
Yeah.
I mean, on the politics of it.
So it was a political
and
decision.
the other was labor. Listen, a year before an election, all decisions have a strong political dimension to them. Make no mistake about it. And labor unions wanted those jobs desperately, so he decided not to come down on either side and to postpone it.
Till after the election?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is the only one. There's been a series of environmental regulations in particular. He's kicked the can down the road. If you want to show you're a leader, I mean, it's not politics as usual, I would not say this is the way to do it. Somebody said this is not leading from behind, it's cowering under the table. So I don't think it's his finest moment.
That?
A friend of mine. No, I did not say it. A friend of mine
He said it, then he quoted it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't me. I would have taken full credit.
Oldest trick in the bag.
Yeah.
But so you know, it's not his finest moment. They obviously decided, hey, we'll take a hit to our leadership. We just don't want to offend the unions or the environmentalists.
Yeah, but then, of course, the state of Nebraska was the one that was raising real cane about it.
That's right.
Of course, it goes through the middle of Kansas as well, because it goes over the aquifer.
That's exactly right,
Yeah,
the aquifer
yeah,
there.
yeah. So what are the So what?
I mean, those are real concerns. I mean,
Yeah.
those are legitimate concerns. I know I'm not trying to minimize it, but this is a politics segment of the show. I mean, the rest of the show, 95% of it the week, deals with substance.
Yeah.
David and I deal with crass, venal
right.
politics.
I have brought a map of where it should go, but I'm not going to share it now.
But you do agree. So you agree with Mark that this was a political decision made a year before election for political reasons.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's not going to be the last that pits these two constituencies against each other, by the way.
Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. We'll see, won't we, Mark?
We will, Jim.
Okay. We'll see, won't we, David?
Yeah.
Thank you both.